All right. Oh, mid gulp. There
That
it is.
wasn't, the screen didn't freeze there. That was just me. It's like reverse epilepsy, which I also have.
Well, we're going to say something intelligent. People are listening here, Thom. All right, we're ready. I'm about to choke on something.
That's
Tom's
choking,
about to
that's
go
not
into song.
COVID. No.
Yeah, don't worry, I'm okay here, people. We're keeping safe. And actually, that is the theme for today. We are going to be talking about social activities, and we're going to be talking about student welfare in online schools. I'm here with the one and only Thom Jones.
Hello.
Expert in ESL education, working with physical language schools, lots of experience, and really understands this stuff. And I guess where I'm trying to fit in is help bring in some of that genius, but also into the online world. My name is Alex Asher. I'm the CEO of LearnCube, and we specialize in creating solutions for language schools, particularly those that are transitioning right now online. And we're trying to do the best we can to deliver the best experience so that you can sell something premium, quality, and of great value to your students and this world. So without further ado, Thom, this is going to be led by you, and I'm going to be throwing in ideas where I can.
Sounds exciting to me. My name is actually Thom Jones, which is embarrassing. I blame my parents. I am basically running a consultancy, working with schools and training facilities and business people around the world. More and more online, which is really good because it means that I'm at home. And I have been desperately kind of persuading people not to fly me to Frankfurt, because honestly, who wants to go to Frankfurt? When they say, can we fly to Mexico? I'm like, yeah, okay, fine, that's a great idea. And when they say, can we fly to Stuttgart? I'm like, actually, no, should we do a webinar?
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to sound like a snob about travel, but I am. And I think what was interesting in what Alex and I talked about when we were prepping this was the idea that we, as an industry, are now hitting the peak season for the summer, where students normally come in their thousands to our shores and are welcomed and have a lovely time. And we're now largely online, and there's some brilliant things happening in terms of what people are setting up for the summer, but a lot of questions as well about saying, well, we can do the classes, that's fine, we've got a platform for that. We're not going to do tours of London. They're not going to Alton Towers. No longer will there be the shoplifting spree in Brighton. That wonderful tradition. And you know, some people are saying, well, what do we do now for a social program? Do we need one? Should we just do the classes? And I think with, you know, if it's business people, if it's adults, then some of them don't want a social program. Although even a very minimal social program will lift what is otherwise a classroom experience into an experience.
There we are. That is what we're going to be talking about today, isn't it, Thom? Because it's all about selling more than just classes, right? Like that's how physical schools are going to be able to compete really well. Because if you are used to creating great, complete and cohesive experiences, and you can do the same thing online with a bit of creativity, a bit of imagination, maybe some right tools, then you know there could be a really great opportunity. And particularly since a lot of people are going to be closing their doors, that means less competition for you.
Definitely. And I think also you kind of think the welfare aspect is really important, because one of the things we rarely talk about in our industry but have to deal with a lot are the issues of student mental health, staff mental health as well, but student mental health, particularly with juniors who are doing things they haven't done before in terms of travel, in terms of learning, in terms of being abroad. And that can put a great stress and a strain on them. And learning is tough, you know, and I think the things we can do online sometimes are, you know, some people are saying, well, I can't, how can I build the trust? How can I build that? And we're talking about the holistic school, because we're saying the program that they come to has to be, you know, the classes where we kind of load them down with linguistic tools, and then we have to give them other opportunities to use those tools, because they'll learn much more from each other than they'll ever learn from us, you know. So we have to set up ways they can do that. And all of those are the things where students kind of go, yay, I'm not in the class anymore. And you're going, you are. It's all a class, you know. It's a trap, you know, because if they are playing badminton together, if they are playing cards together, if they are singing together, if they are, whatever they're doing, they're actually using their language, you know. Even if they're teaching each other Italian, you know, even if, you know, it doesn't matter if it's the language that you're trying to teach them, they're having a learning experience and they are going away from that better, stronger, happier people.
That's it. And I think also when you think about, I mean, I've only been exposed in a limited way as to what most schools are offering in terms of their online experience, and it's not flash. It's
Mm.
really not flash.
Mm.
So I actually think there is going to be a lot of demand as well for these summer schools, because more than anything, they're wanting their kids to get, I think the education they were hoping to get from their public schools, but maybe those public schools haven't been able to adapt fast enough. And it gives a school like yours that's maybe, has fewer decision makers to be able to make faster, more adaptive, more interesting, and more creative decisions. And utilize that teacher creativity. So I'm really excited what's going to come out of this time.
Definitely, and that's a really excellent point, because there are brilliant people thinking up great things, and
Yeah.
I think it's really, there is a lot of energy there. And what's interesting, I think, is the kind of crossover, because the social program is where people get to meet each other, get to mix, get to mingle, but then the welfare aspects do come out of that, because you often see the real nub when people do interact, and people will say really unpleasant things that are okay, amongst their friends, that are okay amongst people they know or people who share their cultural background, and then they come somewhere else and say them, and it's not okay, and it's shocking, and it makes people angry, it makes people upset.
Yeah.
So dealing with the fallout of that, I think, is an integral part of any classroom experience. So setting up a welfare program and safeguarding has been a real issue, because loads of people, as you say, have gone online because they've had to.
Yeah.
And some of that hasn't been as sleek as it would have been if we were, if you're working in a physical school. We've had the equivalent of people saying, I've got a friend who's got a room, you can go to that room and use it as a classroom. And they go, I don't know who your friend is, and I don't know where the classroom is, and I don't even know if it's suitable to be a classroom. Yeah, go on, because I need a room. And we'd never do that in a physical school, so why would we do that online? And I think there's a lot of people using things that are anonymous, using things where they're not monitored, using things where they're not attributable, they're not really able to see what's happening and who's there, and that's worrying.
That is. It feels like we're going to be able to split this conversation into a couple of parts. I'd like to start off with just, let's go through what a physical school would look like, where you would need these things, and let's have a look at those different components. And before we kind of immediately go, oh, you can replicate those exact same things online, maybe we can go that one step better and kind of come up with some ideas on, hey, what would actually people really value online, rather than just, hey, we did it in physical situations, so we're going to do it online. So we could talk about what a physical school is currently doing. We can use that as the basis point to talk about what you could do online. And you could talk about 3 different areas here. We're going to be talking about the social activities. We're going to be talking about student welfare, whether that be mental or otherwise. And we also can talk about safety. Now, while they're kind of all aligned, just in terms of online safety, I think that's something that a lot of people are very interested in learning about. So we can talk about that as well. How's that sound?
That's spot on. Love it. Yeah,
fantastic.
Definitely.
Let's start off with, okay, what has been great about what we've been delivering in these physical online schools, and particularly where we've needed a social activities and so forth? Tell us about that experience so far, Thom.
I think the evolution in the last 5-6 years of physical schools recognizing elements of well-being and promoting very much times for students to reflect on what they've learned have been really important. So building those into a program, because selling a program is always the real thing of balancing what the parents or the stakeholders want to buy, and what the stakeholders who are actually coming, the students, what they actually want to do, so it's that thing of going, right, well, we'll put sports on and we'll put a Shakespeare play on, but nobody wants to see a Shakespeare play because nobody understands a Shakespeare play. I will digress just a tad here. When I was very young and very single, I went out with this woman who was far out of my league on every level, and realized it quite quickly. It was a brief relationship, but anyway, we went to see a Shakespeare comedy, right? And she laughed. Like, she didn't laugh because other people in the audience were laughing. She laughed because she genuinely understood not only that there were jokes, which totally passed me by, but also why they were funny. And I realized, like, as this play, it was The Taming of the Shrew, funnily enough, and as the play went on, I realized how far out of my league I was. you know, because she was a lot brighter
Did you
than I
try
was.
to laugh along? Did you laugh
Yeah,
when
yeah,
she
yeah.
laughed, or did you just
Yeah,
laugh with
I
everyone
just
else?
sort of side-eyed her, and the moment she sort of went, I kind of went, ah, and I was caught out a couple of
I
times
was
because,
thinking
you
that
know,
would be a good trap. I should be like,
yeah,
"Am I?
yeah,
No, I'm
yeah,
not,"
yeah,
because
yeah.
it's not
It was,
funny.
oh,
That was tragic. You
yeah,
shouldn't have
yeah.
laughed at that.
Well,
Oh,
no, it was painful. It was painful. It didn't last long. And, but you know, we always take students. We always kind of drag them along to a Shakespeare play,
yeah,
and they don't want to go, and they don't understand it, and they
yeah.
don't understand why they're there. And we prep them. We talk about it. And but parents want it, you know.
Okay, so
And
this is
actually,
already giving us ideas, though, Tom. You know, like how can we? There's so much that we can facilitate
well, you know,
as
actually, what's
all over
interesting is
online, right?
they don't want to go. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely, definitely. And I
Okay,
think,
so we've got this need for social activities, which
Mhm.
is why. Tell me that, and let's just ask some basic, silly questions.
I think the why of a social activities program is partly because you can't be in class all the time.
Yeah,
You know, if you're locked
yeah,
on a campus,
yeah,
you've got to do other things.
yeah,
And you have to give students the illusion of freedom, you know, because it
yeah,
is that thing where you've just managed to travel successfully from Uruguay
yeah,
and you arrive in this campus and we're going, you cannot cross that road, not allowed to cross that road. And they're like, what? And, you know,
yeah,
and they're often, you know, relatively old, you know, young adults. They're sort of 16,
yeah.
17, and they're suddenly being
Okay.
told, you can't cross that road, you can't smoke, you can't do all these things that you maybe do at home. And they're often horrified. And you'll
Yeah,
sometimes get parents ringing you and going, yeah, it's okay for him to travel to central London on his own, it's cool. And you're like, he's 11, it's not,
yeah.
it's not okay.
No,
Like,
not
no,
gonna.
I'm his father, I'm saying it's fine. And you're like, well, yeah, but it's illegal, so no.
Yeah.
Oh, you know, and so
Well, the
getting
good
a
thing
social
is
program.
control is going to be much easier online. So if anyone was worried about that, hopefully we're going to provide some sanity measures for you.
I mean, honestly, that's what's really interesting with the online thing now is that so many people who were really, really resistant and really terrified. That
Yeah,
2, 3 months ago, we we're having the conversation of would they teach online? Would
yeah,
they go? No, it's rubbish.
yeah,
And now I go, actually, I love it. It's amazing.
yeah,
And
yeah,
you know, partly because you turn that screen off, they're not there anymore.
yeah,
You know, and as somebody who spent every summer since I was 19 with students running about the route, you know, running about the whole campus and me having to run about and chase them, I'm only
yeah.
27.
I know.
Taking a toll on
I
me.
can
And,
imagine. It's very hard life.
do you know what I mean? I used to have a full head of hair not 8 years ago. And you know, that is kind of exhausting and it's draining, but it's also the kind of fear factor of thinking,
Okay.
what are they doing? What are the ones that I can't see now? What are they doing?
Yeah,
The nice thing about the online option is just say, oh, you know, it's not my monkey, it's not my circus. Poof, you know.
yeah.
So
No,
the
that's
welfare
good.
element is obviously lighter because
Yeah,
they are in their own homes or they're somewhere
yeah.
else.
But they might be having other things, and I think this is where teachers and online schools again can live up because,
Mm,
again, I mean, look, LearnCube, we've been selling to online language education providers for years,
mm,
but I have not been seeing the same kind of thing done online. And maybe the reason is just simply no one thought about it because there was no need. There was a massive, I mean, there's a massive tradition there.
mm.
Surely a whole bunch of those people that have had, maybe another child go to these summer camps and go, hey, that was a fantastic experience. I wonder if they're going to offer something of equivalent value now online. Surely there's going to be some creative people out there. Now, if people just go, hey, yeah, we're going to do some like 20-hour a week Zoom calls, I mean, yeah, it's probably not going to, no one's going to be barging to your door to kind of live that up. But can you kind of create that same sense of excitement, that same sense of community, that same sense of engagement online? And I think the answer is you can. You probably just need to think imaginatively about it.
Totally true. And I think what's really important is watching, the reason that I'm in this industry, and God knows I could have had a real job, but the reason I'm in the industry is because I love it. And what I love about it is you do see students who, particularly in a short course over the summer, it's formative. They'll come
Yeah,
in and they often hate school. They've often had a very negative experience. They're sometimes sent as a punishment,
sure.
and it's like, right, you failed, so you have to go and study all summer.
Yeah,
Or they're told they're coming to a camp and there's sports, and then they arrive and it's a school, and they're like, oh my God, I've just been in school all year and I have to be in school
yeah,
again. And what's really great is you see this kind of road to Damascus moment where a
yeah,
student will suddenly realize it's not about their mum and dad, it's not about a teacher, it's not about an exam, it's about them.
yeah,
And they just go, hang on, this is amazing. And I think the online platforms are really great ways of setting that free, because you do see students, particularly if they are at home, particularly if
yeah,
they are not where they want to be in terms of on a beach or on holiday, suddenly going, hang on, this is not a punishment. This is not a detention.
Yeah, it could be
I'm really
fun.
enjoying this, like I'm enjoying interacting with people from around the world, and this is fab. And
But that's the point though, isn't it? Like you
yeah.
just said it, interacting,
Mm.
So the last thing somebody wants to be doing after a year of school is sitting in a lecture where they're sitting with the other students all quietly watching somebody lecture at them. I mean, that is not somebody people pay for.
No.
So how do we increase that interaction? Tell me some of these what are these points of interaction, Thom, that we ideally want to recreate in the online realm? So tell me about in the physical sense, and then we can talk about in the online sense.
Well, I think the thing that we've talked about before that I remember when I first mentioned it to you, and you looked exactly the same way as everybody else does when I've mentioned this in the last 5 years, of having assemblies, and getting the whole group together and chatting for a couple of minutes at the beginning and the end of the day. And it's really interesting because it's not a case of coming forward and saying, "You up the back there, sit down. We're now going to sing a hymn." It's not that.
Yeah.
It's very much saying, we have had interactions or behavioral things, but also kind of the ethos and the whole kind of glue of the school. So you're saying to people, listen, in the news today, we were looking at this story that's happened here, and why has that happened, and why did we allow that to happen, and was that all right? And you're just throwing sparks out, and you're hoping that some of them will, burst into flames. And what's nice, I think, in terms of interaction is that you are literally flinging the sparks out to the group, and then over the day that percolates like coffee. At the end of the day, you're often bringing that together. But what's really nice as well with the online platforms, that you're able to, if you can use it well, you can hand that mic around the room.
Definitely. You can actually give people that are the quieter people much more of a voice, much more so than even in a physical classroom, where physical proximity can kind of sway people. Oh, I'll just give it to, Anne, she's such a good student, I'll ask her, like it forces teachers to kind of hand the mic around, which gives people an opportunity.
And that can be so powerful because it is about empowerment. It is about making students feel clever and confident. And online, they often feel that nobody's watching.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting watching them blossom there. And I think it is that road to Damascus thing where they kind of go, hang on, and in the darkness nobody can hear you scream. Online, nobody can see you giggle, and so you don't know that anybody's laughing at you. And people normally aren't. That's fine, Alex. Honestly, we've talked about this. Nobody's laughing at you, Alex. Honestly.
Don't make me cry again, Thom. Come on, we did talk about this.
Listen, I love that hair. I love what you've done. I know you've tried. Look, the hairdressers are not open. People know this.
They aren't. Everybody knows this. Look, my wife is saying that this is a very good haircut. So please, Thom.
I had dreadlocks 3 weeks ago. I just went, keep it simple.
Thom, I'm going to bring it back though. Thom, tell me about social activities. What do they look like in person? And then we can talk about them online. Give me some examples.
So one of the really powerful things we've often done is the murder mystery evenings.
Okay, murder mysteries.
Yeah, and we do murder mysteries, which are lovely. We do plays, we do performances, we do dance and drama, and we do hide and seek. Right now, stick with me.
This is brilliant.
They're all things you can use online, and I think what's really interesting is it's not a case of replicating what we do in a physical school. It's taking that and thinking, that's a good idea, but this is a much better idea.
Yeah, like what was and I think if you pull out the seeds on all of those, that's where you should start, not with, well, I was doing hide and seek in person, so how do I do hide and seek online? It's like, wow, that's really difficult. But I was just playing Pictionary the other day. Like it's a brilliant game. It's a brilliant game.
Totally.
You just change, but I mean, the seed of that was, let us have a game that is about, meeting each other and kind of having an experience. Okay, how can we replicate that online? Like that seems, games are plenty. And I think you can use, even with LearnCube, the whiteboard gives so many opportunities for people to engage and interact with each other. Even our breakout rooms gives people a really good opportunity to get to know each other. All right, so that's games. Now tell me about some other ones. You mentioned theatre.
We do a lot of theatre, and I think getting people to actually perform to camera and getting people to do stuff, just amazing. And they'll often be totally paralyzed with fear if they're in front of an audience. Whereas when they're in front of a cyber audience they can't see, they don't care.
So good. Like, okay, so my wife, she does dance online, right? So it's already being done. It's not like, oh, well, I'm at school and now there's no way I could possibly do it. No, she's taking dancing lessons online. It's great.
I do fencing classes online,
See?
and I mean I've done physical fencing classes obviously, and I've got a variety of scars to show that. But I do fencing classes online, and
Yeah,
spectacular, you know. And
yeah,
what you're doing basically is you're breaking the ice, and you're getting people to
yeah.
interact, you know.
That's right.
So you know, it's not. I think what's interesting is that a lot of people that are bringing these programs together
Yeah,
are people who have got used to a digital existence,
yeah,
but you know, are not 100% comfortable with it and feel it doesn't, you know, it's not the same as a physical experience, and it isn't. But actually, a lot of
no,
the people using it now,
yeah,
a lot of the people we're selling it to live
yeah,
like that, you know,
yeah.
because that's
I mean,
it's a
I
little top
was
hype, isn't it?
almost thinking, I was also thinking with the dance thing, right? Like, okay, let's say that your fear, like me, is like, oh, I don't want other people kind of looking at me as I dance. Fine. But what if, for example, on our whiteboard, you put on a YouTube video of people dancing to a great tune that everyone loves. And I mean, look, you've got to be small anyway. And if everyone's dancing, no one's going to like, if you're in person, you feel like people are really looking at you. If you can like hardly see anyone and you're kind of dancing away, like that's rocking it. Like that's
Yeah,
really
totally.
cool.
Well, I
So
think, I mean, if I
even
can
that
just,
can really help.
as an example, you know, the nice thing I think for me on many levels about doing the online fencing is that I no longer have to, you know, worry about hurting anyone, because, you know, it's very heavy and it's very sharp. And the thing is, if I'm doing this online, you know, there's no risk to anybody other than me and my screen.
And
Which,
everyone will watch that. So it's brilliant.
you know,
It's brilliant.
Actually, it's a little bit.
I love how you pulled out a sword. I never thought there would be a sword behind it. I should have really thought about it, you know?
You know, there's a lot of swords there.
Of course.
There's axes. There's a couple of
course
warhammers. There's a very, very old Soviet rifle, which thankfully doesn't work.
Oh man, that is brilliant. So look, you can do all of these things. And again, I think what we're getting at here is think about the seed, what you actually wanted the outcome to be, and then you'll find a way of making that work online. We talked about dance, we talked about theater, we talked about games. These are absolutely all things you can do online. And it just takes some creativity to figure it out. But I mean, also, look, you may need to acknowledge that if your teachers don't want to be there, that's just not going to work at all. Like you have to be, and look, if you're not the right teacher for this, you need to put up your hand and say, look, I'm not willing to learn or to try. Fine. But if you're there, or if the teacher's there, they need to be like bang on. And it might be, you know, it might be even more important to have maybe even an experienced teacher. You know what? This would actually work really well, Thom, is you have an experienced teacher. Maybe they really understand all of the linguistic stuff and can really teach. But then you have somebody that's just young and fun and just going to facilitate, you know, and their role is not to be, and maybe they're an intern teacher. They actually want to learn how to become a really great online or even in-person teacher. But just like this, you know, like I'm learning from you, you're learning from me, and it's just way more fun this way. So you can actually even do it that way, which can be really exciting. And actually on that, even from a viability point of view, we've got a new broadcast, what we call it a broadcast mode. And you can have a number of people up the front. So you could even have the experienced teacher, the young kind of learner teacher, and you could actually have a bigger class. So while I generally don't really encourage people to have very large classes, for certain segments, you could have, as I say, a double up of the teachers in the front of the class. You have the students all join up, and maybe there's 16 students rather than your 8 or your 12 or whatever it is. And then you have a phenomenal class because you've got that energy. You've got one person that can provide that spark, and you're kind of talking with each other. So I think that could be phenomenal, really fun.
Definitely, totally agree.
Totally possible online.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think the online experience in terms of welfare is really good because you are able to really put attention to that person and give them your full attention in a way that in a physical school, I've often found when I'm having those sensitive discussions with a student, and obviously another member of staff, you know, present, to make sure that, you know, they don't attack me, because that happens a lot.
Yeah, you need to take your sword again, don't you, Thom?
Exactly, I mean, because there's occasional.
Just imagine you at the table, the sword in the middle now. By the way, small child, do not cross the line.
This is the sword of justice. He will take your head should he need to. Sorry, I've gone all Winterfell there. It's gone all
It is fine, Tom.
Apologies.
Go for your life, mate.
But what's nice, I think, in terms of welfare stuff, is that when you are in an online room, and it's a safe space because nobody else is coming in there, but also nobody's barging through the door, nobody's walking past, nobody's going to ring you up, and so you can really help students with the problems they have and with the concerns they have.
Yeah, just think about what that's like when you, like, I remember even as a kid, right? Like, even if you wanted to say something, like, you had to wait after class. You didn't want anyone else to know that you were going to ask something. Whereas, if you're a summer school, of course you should be mixing. I mean, you call them one-to-one classes and group classes and larger group classes or whatever. It doesn't matter the terminology. The reality is, like, you need different classroom formats, different classroom types for different occasions. So, probably in that summer school, it would be silly for you to only be offering large group classes where you just have the same format, teacher and teacher, and then all these students, or one teacher and 6 students, or just one-on-ones. Like, you're generally going to want to mix those and create a really vibrant, great offering. That's like, hey, look, when your child comes to us, they're not going to be just stuck in a room being lectured at for the next 20 hours. No, what we're going to be doing is going to be facilitating this great experience where you're going to be having some one-to-one sessions with a teacher, so they really get their personal attention that they need and make sure that they're feeling motivated and on track. We're going to be providing some smaller group classes as well. So just even 2 to 3 students, and we're going to be even breaking those out so they can kind of talk to each other and have that really great peer-to-peer conversations. Then we're going to have some larger conversations, and we're going to be doing assemblies. We're going to be creating this really rich experience, and that's what you're buying. You're buying this incredible experience that you would never be able to get elsewhere. And by the way, the standard right now is, for a lot of online classes, really poor. So you've really got an opportunity to stand up and say, look, even if this doesn't work perfectly, I'm going to learn from this. And when you send your child to our summer camp, our online summer camp, you're going to know that we're going to bring our best every single time. We're going to try and make the best of this situation together. I think it's going to be really exciting for the summer, for sure.
Definitely. I think there's loads of really good stuff happening. And also what I'm looking forward to, oddly, is the hindsight of September, where we can look back and think, actually, that was amazing. That was brilliant.
Yeah.
We can then do that, and we can then bring that forward. And what's interesting, I guess, is that, the online teaching thing is by no means new, and yet a lot of the players now are new, because there's a lot of people bringing a lot of very different expertise into it. And some of them are finding their feet and some of them are slipping over, but a lot of people are standing tall, and a lot of people are making amazing efforts and bringing really fantastic ideas in,
I also think this is a great opportunity for innovation, because even though we've been selling, as I say, to schools for a lot of years, we have not had an opportunity to really kind of stretch the limits of what an online school could look like, because a lot of schools were like, how do I get to scale? Okay, well then I need to ensure everything's highly efficient and everything kind of works perfectly, and they pay this way and then they go into this thing. And that's brilliant for one pocket of that market, and particularly for the large players. We work with a lot of large players. They need to do that because they need to hit higher numbers, and it's a different product. But if you have a smaller number of students, there is no limit to your imagination how you can use not even just LearnCube, but any product, if you kind of put your mind to it. But
I think that's what's exciting with the LearnCube thing for me, is the idea that, there are kind of chosen mapped paths in it, but also, like any good kind of online experience, you can take it where you want it to go, and it's a nice kind of Swiss Army knife tool. And we're not 100% certain what any of it can do now, because people use it in their own way, and that's quite exciting.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people will come up with some great ideas. So we've talked about social activities, and I think the first thing is to get out of the idea that it's limited, and that online can never do what a physical classroom is. It's just saying, wait a minute, that's not the right question to ask. Like, what could we do even better online?
Can I say I had an amazing experience about 2 weeks ago where I did a tour of London with a group of students, all, we're basically doing a teacher training event, and we did a 15-minute break, where we did like a tour around London. And what was amazing for me, having dragged hundreds and hundreds of students around London and sweat bullets of fear each time I've done it, because, you're going to lose somebody wanders off and all that. And having none of that was beautiful and made me happy. But also we were able to kind of do this, online tour. And so we're able to actually see stuff, but also talk about it coherently and really sort of share the experience in a way that physically, you know, you're always kind of going, what? Hang on, Richard, there's a taxi, I can't, what? And, you know, full focus on each other and full focus on the experience, which I really enjoyed. Right? And I didn't have to go to London, which was great because I don't like London. So, you know, that was nice.
I mean, even just saying it though, I was actually talking with somebody that their company is called City AR. I think they have.
Yeah, Ross Holmes.
Yeah,
really
Ross.
interesting guy,
So really nice guy, and we were talking about it the other day, and I really liked where he was going with that, which is virtual tours. Now, again, I think for a pretty small price, and if you consider like the overall value of a summer school, I think that would be a wonderful thing to be able to add as like part of that that messaging is like, hey, look, and we also have looked outside of the square and found other tools that we can kind of bring on. That doesn't have to be
I think
hard.
what's really exciting about the social activities is that you can use that kind of remote contact. So the fact that you've got one student who is in, you know, Dusseldorf and one student who is in Aachen and another student who is in Sao Paulo is brilliant, because actually what they're doing is you're going, look, Raul, can you actually go outside and take us down to La Ramblas in Barcelona and show it to us, you know? And that's the activity, is the student taking you around and this is my favorite cafe and this is what I like to drink and this is the guy that sells it to me, and it's brilliant. And you are kind of going, oh, this is wicked, in a way that you know, you can't really do that when you're all trapped on a campus somewhere off the A63.
That's a brilliant idea, Tom. I love I mean, because when you think of cultural experience, often you talk, but a lot of the time we're not really listening. We're kind of just waiting to talk. And so when you put people into that position of saying, hey, why don't you actually show me your home, you know, or at least your area? We'd love to see it. And you're in a safe environment. If you're in an online classroom and you've got, like, you know, for example, we've, for example, got automated attendance recording and just making sure that everything's safe there. And we're going to talk about safety later, but you can create a safe space where people can show off their homes, show their friends and family, and really bring in like a really strong intercultural experience that otherwise people might not get as two expats. Two expats is a different culture, right? Versus like,
well, also,
this
like,
is my culture.
a group of people in one room.
Yeah.
And suddenly you've got people everywhere in the world. And they're all sort of showing each other the window into all those different rooms. And that's really exciting. You know, that's really exciting. And that's much more of an interaction than often that physical kind of sat next to each other and both going, you know, we're in an agricultural college outside of London somewhere, and, you know, and going, isn't the weather bad? Isn't the food awful? You know, don't all the people look like potatoes? Do you know what I mean? And you're like, well, you know, but being able to show you around and being able to kind of share where you are. And it's also, I think, another thing that I think is really important is a lot of EFL stuff and our industry is all about there's a kind of cultural imperialism, isn't there? There's a kind of colonialism about saying, you know, you can be like us. And actually it's a lingua franca. It's not a language that belongs to any culture anymore. So having somebody, you know, in wherever they are, talking to you about what they're doing there locally, and that's important, you know, because often we have those English language classes where we're about, in London people like to eat this, you know, or, you know, in New York people eat this, and you go, that doesn't matter anymore, you know, nobody cares what people in England are having for breakfast, you know.
It just also means you need to think differently about your content. Like, your content that you were using in these physical camps is probably not going to work that well online. Does that matter? No, the extra challenge is that, you're going to have to think differently about it. But look, if you do this once, you can do this every single year. Like, this doesn't have to be a one-off. This can add that resilience. And if you do it really well, you know, you're going to be the leader in this space. And I mean, if you think about it, those are high value courses because they're there for a long amount of time. In terms of your cost structure, it's actually way lower, right?
Yeah, totally.
Because you don't have to do any of this transport or social activities or when paid social activities. I mean, even if you do social activities online, like even if you wanted to pay for something, it's what, like a couple of bucks, you know, it's going to be a lot cheaper.
You know, the other thing we've done is get a band in, like literally get a band in, and a band will play in their, you know, basement recording studio, friend's living room, whatever it is, and people come in and watch the band. You know?
What's wrong with that? What's wrong with that? That's
great.
brilliant.
And people love it, you know, and people will do that now anyway.
I mean, what if you've got a band? You know, look, let's say that, you know, I mean, this is your job, you know, if you're a school owner, you find a band, and instead of it being in just like, oh, we're just going to play the thing, you know, like halfway through, they're like, stop them. And you know, the students actually ask about the lyrics. Hey, like, what were the lyrics that you heard out of this? And then talk about them. Like, you can create phenomenal experiences. But I think at the moment we're like, well, that's not free.
Yeah.
And it's just like, sorry guys, we need to really think differently about this. Otherwise, otherwise people want to pay free. Like if you want to charge for something, then you need to invest in a great service and make it a professional, beautiful, coherent experience. That's just gonna have to do the work.
Definitely.
I don't know if there's anything you can really say about that.
You know, we've had a really great thing recently where we've got a storyteller who, you know, we're paying big bucks because it's her job, you know, and she's fantastic, you know, she's phenomenal. And she's suddenly getting this massive audience, you know, and people who, and you know, we've done this with adult classes and business people, and it's really interesting because a lot of them initially had kind of gone, well, I've no interest in storytelling, it's rubbish, and then discovered that A, they quite like somebody telling them a story, B, for their own actual work in terms of presentations, in terms of negotiation, there's a whole, you know, there's a whole thought piece coming across from watching a really good orator, you know, somebody who's just a great talker, and thinking, hang on, that's magical, you know, and why are we not doing that when we're doing presentations, and why are we not, you know, so those elements can bring in, and you know, it costs money to set that up, but it doesn't cost a lot of money, but it costs a lot less than flying everyone to Norwich. No offense to Norwich.
No, but it's 100% true. And even look, YouTube has how many millions and millions and millions of views, right? Like surely amongst all of that, you do a bit of kind of research yourself, you'll be able to find some really great, really relevant experiences. And I'm sure other platforms can do it, but LearnCube does a great job of syncing videos so that you as a teacher can actually still control the YouTube experience. But that's what tools do, right? Is they kind of enable these possibilities where there would otherwise be chaos. But
I mean, I think that's genuinely. I'm sorry, the sword was.
I love how you're just leaning on a sword casually.
It's fine. I never actually used that foot, which is currently bleeding quite profusely. No, but I think what's really nice in terms of the LearnCube platform for me is the fact that you know, much like a physical school, I know where everybody is. And I know what they're doing, and I can mentor, I can monitor, but I can also leave them alone.
That's right. But also as an owner and a teacher, right? Like teachers have control over the class, but also owners have, again, that level of kind of visibility. But let's go back to task as well, in terms of, we haven't really talked about safety online. I think we're almost kind of touching on it, but let's touch on that quickly and then we'll wrap this up.
Sure.
And tell me about what are the important concerns that you've had from schools, for example, Thom, on safety, either safety in person, and then what are those same kind of issues that might translate online? What are the safety concerns we have?
You know, the big safeguarding stuff in terms of juniors is very much making sure that students have an environment in which they feel physically safe, but also they feel mentally safe in terms of being protected from bullying, but also being protected from messages or, you know, ideas that they might find unsettling, you know, and that's very difficult because obviously a lot of students have very different parameters for that. And I think, you know, a lot of that physical stuff about, for example, talking to students with the door open, you know, or talking to students with another member of staff in the room. And suddenly you're thinking, actually, you know, what's really nice about the online experience for me is that you can, you know, get students in a room online, and if you are using the right platform, and it is not an anonymous platform where they can
that's, I think, critical. Anonymity is just I mean you can get away with it, like it works, but if you just think about what you're giving up, is it really worth just kind of going into that? For me, it strikes me as a real, I think it's a mistake, you know.
And I think what's really nice about the classroom element as well is that thing of saying you have to have your camera on, otherwise you can't come in. You know, and I think that's really good because in the physical classroom we're often doing that thing of saying, you know, take your coat off when you're in the room.
Take your hat off, take your hoodie off.
Exactly, you know, they're kind of slumped in a corner, and maybe they're slumped in a corner because they're unhappy, you know, and maybe they're slumped in a corner because they don't want to be there. And what's very nice, I think, about the online element is that you are able to, you know, A, spot that, and B, find a really easy way of going to, you know, it's not that thing, and you mentioned this earlier, where you're saying, can you stay after class? And everybody knows that you talk to that person. You're able to just directly go to that person after the class without anybody else knowing and saying, look, are you all right? You know, you looked really upset today, you look really, you know.
But that's also the point, right? Like if you're anonymous, okay, let's say that you had 10 students. and they're anonymous, right? Well, first of all, there's no like name, or they've put some bogus name like Boogeyman in as the title. And you're like, oh, okay. First of all, I've forgotten your name, and second of all, I don't know. You've turned off your camera. Which Boogeyman are you? Now I have to do it by elimination to figure out who you are. So again, LearnCube, one of the nice things though is that you're using names. You know who turned up and who didn't. It's like verified online, like we actually know who turned up. But then we also have like private messaging, certainly with like an internal messaging system, not only to keep the teacher like, hey, look, these were my messages, so that's kind of above board. But then also same with the students, so you can be like, teacher goes to student, hey, look, I'm a bit worried about you. Do you want to meet with me? Even if the teacher doesn't want to do it alone, again, brings in the admin person, say, hey, look, do you want to meet with me and Tom? We're just worried about you. Or, hey, we think you're doing brilliant. We'd love you to just catch up with us and make sure that we're doing, what's your feedback? What's your take on this? What could we be doing better? So there's a lot of things that you can still do. You just need to think a little bit differently and not feel like, oh, there's no way I could do that online.
Definitely. I mean, I think what's really interesting is that there is a perception in the kind of community at the moment that the online experience is lesser, and the online experience is certainly less personal, and less personable. And I think it's really important to stress that that's absolutely not the case. In my experience,
well, it's a choice, right? It's a complete choice. It is absolutely impersonal if you make it impersonal.
Yeah.
It's really personal if you give them a one-on-one,
and that's really exactly the same as a classroom, isn't it? Like, the relationship you build up with students, the rapport you have, that's up to you. And it's kind of what I can't believe I'm actually talking about child safety and welfare holding a sword. It's fine.
It makes it more humorous, Tom. I always enjoy it.
Also, it's really quite big, so I can't put it down anywhere without risking cutting my leg off.
It makes you look wise, like a king, actually.
Yeah. Well, people have mentioned that before. That's like, I don't like
Tom Jones. It's just rings perfectly.
But I think what's fascinating to me is the fact that there are so many tools that make it so easy to reach out, that make it so easy to have a safe discussion and to have a discussion in a way that students are, students will often, and people in general will often say things in a foreign language they wouldn't say in their own language, but also students online will often really talk in a way that they won't face to face, because partly it doesn't count because it's online, and partly it counts a lot more.
Yeah. And I would like to jump on that actually, Tom, because we've actually played with a feature before of having like an online community in the online school. And to be fair, we've cut it because it was too open to misuse, both from students, but also from elsewhere. So we decided that wasn't a safe online environment. And to be fair, like if you look at other platforms, they're probably not going to provide a safe online environment. So that's why live communities where you actually meet people with cameras on online can actually be way more safe, right? Because you can avoid the whole like, oh, you texted this to me and now I'm misunderstanding or I'm upset because you wrote this. Whereas they might have just, if they were able to have a chance of saying it, they probably wouldn't say maybe something nasty, and maybe the kind of actual intent would come through the way that the person actually sort of spoke and kind of mentioned.
But I think there's a far-reaching aim there, and I think that is the ultimate aim of education, isn't it? Dare I say? But the aim of education is basically to help people understand how to behave, how to interact, and how to be together. And the online world is one that is not connected to a lot of education, or has not been until now. And so people are speaking and behaving online in a way that they wouldn't face to face. And if we can help cross that bridge and say to people, look, actually, being a dick, online is the same as being a dick face to face, like a technical bit of jargon there.
But people seem to get a superpower online. So that's why we don't want them texting each other too much.
Because we're saying to people, actually, look, we can treat each other kindly. We can treat each other with respect. And that's, you do that face to face. Why would you not do that online? And the more we can get that message across, I think the better we as a species are going to be.
Thank you, King Tom, for your wise words today. I know that on behalf of all of us, and actually we are going to wrap this up now, but no, seriously, Tom, thank you for your wise words. I think that's a great place to finish today. I think we've gone through social activities. Look, it's really up to your own imagination. the technology is not actually the limitation. It's just how you kind of think about what is it that I'm trying to achieve, and then looking towards tools. Talk to us about, hey, maybe how could I do this? Secondly, we've talked about welfare. We talked about mental welfare in particular. One-on-ones, they're brilliant. And if not one-on-ones, then, you know, one-on-ones with another kind of mentor kind of there, and just say, hey, look, you know, I've got somebody else joining us here. Look, he's not going to get involved, but I just wanted to provide a safe place for us to talk. You can do that, right? Do it online, just same as in person. We talked about safety, talked about how maybe text-based kind of just crazy kind of communication between everyone can kind of get a bit out of hand, but doing it live actually works really well. And there's a lot of tools that can help do that. And I think we've kind of covered some really interesting points here. I know that a lot of people around, not just the UK, but around the world, are really wanting to see these summer programs work. And these same ideas can absolutely apply to those that aren't summer schools. And I'm really excited to see the creativity. Thom, last words, my friend.
I would entirely agree with you. And I think all the things that you just said, I wish I had said first, so I could sound as clever. So I'm kind of frustrated. But I am now going to go and fight some orc. So
excellent. Excellent. All right.
There's things to do here.
Well, I better get off. You know, they've got orcs on my turf as well. I'll go there.
Brilliant. Pleasure, mate.
Cheers,
always a joy. Thanks
Bye.
so much.
All right.
Was I all right, darling? I just wasn't sure. I mean, it's just so, you know, gosh, isn't it?
You're still recording, my friend. I'm just going to...
No, I know.
I can't
that was humour. That was comedy.